शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवराभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किम कुर्वत सञ्जय। श्रीभगवानुवाच क्लैप्यं मास्मकमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वयुपपद्यते क्षुद्रमृतयतौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। यं सन्न्यासमिति प्राहुः योगं तं विद्धि पाण्डव न यसन्न्यस्तसङ्कल्पो योगी भवति कश्चन। आरुरुक्षोर्मुनेर्योगं कर्म कारणमुच्यते योगारूढस्य तस्यैव शमः कारणमुच्यते। यदा हि नेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मस्वनुषज्जते सर्वसङ्कल्पसन्न्यासी योगारूढस्तदोच्यते। उद्धरेतात्मनात्मानं नात्मानम् अवसादयेत् आत्मैव यात्मनो बन्धुः आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्तस्य येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत्। यथा दीपो निवातस्थो नेङ्गते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनो यतचित्तस्य युञ्जतो योगमात्मनः यं लब्ध्वा चापरं लाभं मन्यते नाधिकं ततः यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचालयते शनैः शनैरुप्रमेत बुद्धया धृतिगृहीतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चिदपि चिन्तयेत् सर्वभूतस्थमात्मानं सर्वभूतानि चात्मनि ईक्षते योगयुक्तात्मा सर्वत्र समदर्शनः यो मां पश्यति सर्वत्र सर्वं च मयि पश्यति तस्याहं न प्रणश्यामि स च मे न प्रणश्यति चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण प्रमाथि बलवदृढम् तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये वायोरिव सुदुष्करम् असंशयं महाबाहो मनो दुर्निग्रहं चलम् अभ्यासेन तु कौन्तेय वैराग्येण च गृह्यते असंयत्मात्मना योगो दुष्पाप इति मे मतिः वश्यात्मना तु यतता शक्यो वाप्तुमुपायतः पार्थ नैवेह नामुत्र विनाशस्तस्य विद्यते न हि कल्याणकृत् कश्चित् दुर्गतिं तात गच्छति मनुष्याणां सहस्रेषु कश्चित् यतति सिद्धये यततामपि सिद्धानां कश्चिन्मां वेत्ति तत्त्वतः मत्तः परतरं नान्यत् किञ्चिदस्ति धनञ्जय मयि सर्वम् इदं प्रोतं सूत्रे मणिगणा इव रसोऽहमप्सु कौन्तेय प्रभास्मि शशिसूर्ययोः प्रणवः सर्ववेदेषु शब्दः खे पौरुषं नृषु बीजं मां सर्वभूतानां विद्धि पार्थ सनातनम् बुद्धिर्बुद्धिमतामस्मि तेजस्तेजस्विनाहम् बलं बलवतां चाहं कामरागविवर्जितम् धर्माविरुद्धो भूतेषु कामोऽस्मि भरतर्षभ दैवी ह्येषा गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते मायामेतां तरन्ति ते चतुर्विधा भजन्ते मां जनाः सुकृतिनो अर्जुन आर्तो जिज्ञासुरर्थार्थी ज्ञानी च भरतर्षभ तेषां ज्ञानी नित्ययुक्त एकभक्तिर्विशिष्यते प्रियो हि ज्ञानिनो अत्यर्थम् अहं स च मम प्रियः वेदाहं समतीतानि वर्तमानानि चार्जुन भविष्याणि च भूतानि मां तु वेद न कश्चन इच्छाद्वेषसमुत्थेन द्वन्द्वमोहेन भारत सर्वभूतानि सम्मोहं सर्गे यान्ति परन्तप येषां त्वन्तगतं पापं जनानां पुण्यकर्मणां ते द्वन्द्वमोहनिर्मुक्ता भजन्ते मां दृढव्रताः.
Very nice, thank you. So we used to do this in our satsang earlier, which is a recap of 3 points from last meeting. Anyone can go first. And if there is 3 things that stuck in your memory from the last meeting, you can share that with the group. And one thing, and we will listen to 2 or 3 responses and move after that. It's a good way to cultivate a continuing memory of what we're discussing, right?
a few terms have stuck with me from the last session. They were bhakti, yagya, gyan, and tap.
Mm-hmm.
And for bhakti, you explained it's swaswarup anusandhan, and I think it was towards the last shlokas where Bhagwan talks about yagya, gyan, and tapa. I think it was, yeah, it was towards the last, yes. So those are kind of the main things that I remember from last session.
Where is the yajna come? Is he very good? Yes, those are definitely.
The last one, Vedeshu Yagyeshu Tapahasu Chaiva.
Right, right. So there, did I hear you right? He means dana.
Yes.
Right, right. So exactly. So the three kinds of work, right?
Yes.
Yajna, dana, tap. Exactly. This will come back later in the Gita again, later chapter again, where Bhagavan explains that this notion of work is very hard to understand. And so then he gives this case that the three kinds of work that should not be given up. And so that's very good. And also bhakti, yes, that definition is very useful, I think, because it connects the jnana marg and the bhakti marg, unites them. Very nice. Great start. Anything else? Last time we finished this 8, is that right?
Yes.
And then we had we listened to that Taittiriya Upanishad, right?
Yep.
So any other reflections?
Dr. Shankar, the one thing we discussed about the Krishna Paksha and Sukla,
Yeah.
right? That was a little bit lightning. Yeah.
Very good. Yes, yes. Of the northern and southern parts, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else?
I remember why the one point about why Bhishma, waited for to leave his Rana then.
Right. Yes.
Uttarayan.
Very nice. Yeah. Uttarayan. So I did some homework after our last discussion, and I calculated from one Manushya Ananda to one Brahmananda is 10 power 16 Manusha Anandas reach one Hiranyagarbha's Ananda. So that is 10 peta blisses. Peta is 10 power 15. So 10 peta blisses equals one Hiranyagarbha's bliss. So moving from, you remember, Manushya, and then the Manushya Gandharva, and then Deva Gandharva, Pitru, Deva, Indra, Brihaspati, Prajapati, and Hiranyagarbha or Brahman. That each one increasing by a factor of 100. So from one Manushya Ananda, you can have a Hecto Ananda at the Devas, at the Manushya Gandharva. Deva Gandharvas have the 10 kilos is Pitra Ananda, 100 Mega Anandas is Devananda, 10 Giganandas is Indra's Ananda, 1 Terananda is Brihaspati's Ananda, 0.1 Petananda is Prajapati's Ananda, and then 10 Patas is Are you inspired? It's fantastic, right? Think of it. I mean, how would you like a Gigananda? That sounds pretty good.
So all those different level of ananda, are they experienced in different as the prana moves upward?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
And but here's the other thing, right? All this is fine. But remember the one very important thing, Shrotriyasya Akamahatasya. The same is gained by one who does just the Vedic karma without desire. Did you remember that? That is a very, very key verse in the Upanishad. Again and again, he lists the Gigananda, Petan, but he says this is the same Ananda that a Manusya gets by doing the Vedic karma without desire. This is very important. Right? So, regardless of what path one follows, whether you feel, did I attain this or did I not attain this, right? Did I attain this level or not? The Upanishad says that bliss is available to one who performs the Shrotriya, who performs the Vedic karmas without desire. So, those of you who are doing Sandhya Vandanam to begin with, right? It's a Nitya karma. It's desireless, right? So, automatically, that bliss starts to become available, right? So, in some sense, this has to be thought of in both ways. So, first thing is it's inspiring, right? I mean, if we try to add up our bliss in a day, and then you add up your bliss over your, think of all the beautiful moments, right? Yesterday, I was in Ledges Park seeing the sunset with all these beautiful trees. It's a very beautiful moment, right? You might classify it as some fraction of a Manusya, right? If you add up all those moments in your life, and then you think, so, 100 mega is not impossible, 10 giga, right? That's kind of pretty cool, right? So, and then we have our different paths. But then the Upanishad tells us, but, the guy who does the Vedic karma without desire is attaining the same thing. That seems a very powerful statement, right? So
I have a technical, just want to clarify. So no, I want to understand if that was not clear. So and so when we in the sometime in the last chapter we talk about unmanifest and manifest, right? So the unmanifest, the original form is that the Hiranyagarbha.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So
yes. Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So this was the simple recipe given by the rishis. Now, of course, it's hard, right? If you look at our day-to-day life, enmeshed as we are, it seems very, very hard. Even to do Dvikala Sandhya Vandanam seems very hard. Forget Trikala Sandhya Vandanam. And then after that, just if you take Nitya Karmas, on top of that, to do Brahma Yagyam at least, and then to do the, say, Agnihotram, Upasanam, or Samidhadanam for Brahmacharis. This seems impossibly Herculean. And there's no doubt about it. It is not easy. And so there is also, it's also said that in Kali Yuga, that's why they say that it is the Lord's name. Nam Japan and Bhakti, that is the faster way. In the Satya Yuga, the Treta, and probably to some extent the Dwapara, they say yajnas had the capacity and power to give that same, obviously, deliver a human being to those levels of bliss. But now it's not that the yajna has lost its power or force. It is that we've become so weak and enmeshed that we cannot do them with that level of sincerity and commitment is a fact. Right? So some sort of a combined approach is needed. And the combined approach is what we present as a daily practice. So the daily practice is a substitute for the Sandhyavadaram. If you're not able to do it with the full ritual aspect, to try and extract the core of it, right? And through that, to slowly somehow align one's life in such a way that at least that is possible, to whatever extent within one's life.
So, Dr. Shankar, these like doing all the Vedic karma, they sound like Herculean tasks. And on top of that, doing them without desires, that's like another level of difficulty.
Absolutely.
I was introspecting, like I was having a stressful week last week, and I was like, I have been running after desires, basically. That's why I'm so unhappy. So anytime I think of, the Vedic karma, it's always attached with, doing them desirelessly.
Right.
And to me, that seems a bigger challenge than just doing the actions.
Absolutely. Right. So you're right. Absolutely. And yet, the feeling is that, legitimate, so desire has to be acknowledged. It's there and there's no problem with it at some level. We just read, as long as it is dharma aviruddha, right? That which is non-opposed to dharma is the Lord himself, right? So as long as one has an understanding of that, that kind of desire doesn't bother. Right? It does not impede progress on the path. But and then another verse we just remembered, which came, yoga rudha karma karana muchyate, right? For the yoga rudha, for the aruruksha, sorry, for the one desirous of climbing the tree of yoga or the mountain of yoga, karma is recommended as a means. Yoga rudha for the one who is established, non-action, inaction, or shama, peace, non-movement of the mind is the means. So we just have to ask ourselves, okay, well, so like you said, yes, so there are desires, because there are sankalpas, that's fine. And so we have karmas, right? And by doing them desirelessly to the extent possible, we start to, it seems hard in the beginning, but actually it starts to make more and more sense along the way, right? I think sometimes what happens is if we look at short-term benefits, those seem very hard by doing things desirelessly. There doesn't seem to be much short-term benefit. And that's true. But there's long-term benefit. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. And then, of course, the other option, which Pavan asked is excellent question. So that's fine. If there is even, let's say there's desire, then we say we offer the fruits to the Lord. Right? So basically what that means is, okay, so I did something out of desire. Let's say, what did I do? So I walked outside yesterday out of desire to be in nature. Right? So I went walking. It was very enjoyable. I possibly got triggered some allergies today because of that. Okay. So then I have to just say, this is the fruit of the Lord and take it, right? So that seems the only other way. Right? So, okay, good. And, anyone else wants to add something before we move on? Nice discussion.
Shankar, can I add something? Can I ask something actually? Okay, before that, I would like to say, thank Rishi for very nicely putting that running after desires is causing a cause of the stress. I really liked the way she put it. I just want to say that out. Yeah. And then from last time, is something that I would say I did not really understand, or I didn't. So the verses 25 and 26, they're talking about the Krishna Paksha and Dakshinayanam.
Right.
So I'm confused by this in the sense that do we have to take them like figuratively or is it literally? The reason I'm confused is that like in Uttarayana also we have Krishna Paksha, in Dakshinayana we have Krishna Paksha. So
Right.
so what does that mean? Like that's what I am confused with that. So
Sure. Right. So, yeah, this is a peculiar thing about our Vedas and things. They do have a literal and figurative significance. Both are there. So, what Bhagavan is saying is, so in the Uttarayanam, the sun moves in the northerly path. And within the body, when we look at the Ida and Pingala Nadis and the Sushumna, the energy in the Pingala moves upward in the Uttarayanam progressively. So literally, when you look at the 6 months, starting from so when does it? So we just we went into, so it was in June 21 or something like that, right? We had the solstice, right? Summer solstice. Then it moves into autumnal equinox, and then all the way up to the winter solstice, right? So in this time, this is Dakshinayana, so days are shortening, right? So in this time, so before June 21st, the sun and the solar energy is at the highest, and before that, it was moving up, right? So the solar energy has its own rhythm going up and down. The energy in the lunar energy, which is the moon, the Ida, it has its own cycle. It's much faster, obviously, right? So in the Shukla Paksha, it's moving upward and it comes down in the Krishna Paksha, right? Now, at every instant in time, when the Jiva is situated in Bhuloka, observes these two energies are looking at each other in some way. So when you look at the Jyotisha chart, you can see what is the situation in Purnima, in Amavasya, etc. Right now, the solar energy is in Kanya, and the lunar is in Mithunam. In a few days, it will become Amavasya. So they will both be aligned. The alignment times are very special for sadhana. That's why Amavasya and Purnima are very powerful days for sadhana, because the solar and lunar energies are aligned. In one case, they are facing each other. In one case, they are together with each other, right? So now in the Uttarayanam, when the sun is moving upward and the moon is also moving upward, Bhagavan is saying, and in the daytime, right? That is the most desirable time for the pranas to leave the world. All three. And essentially what it says is that when we practice pranayama and yoga, we become aware of this cosmic rhythm and we become aware of our individual rhythm. And when the two become tuned with each other, then the yogi is able to know when to give up the pranas. Because he realizes that now at this point, things are moving in the right direction. He or she. If you look at Sharda Devi, wife of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, she also had this knowledge. Now, so of course it requires a lot of inner self-understanding. So we have to understand ourselves beyond the Annamaya Kosha at the Pranamaya Kosha. And so this is truly an understanding at the level of Pranamaya Kosha, right? And of course, purification of the Manomaya, etc. Then, so when we take Bhishma's example, I mean, look at his life. He was a eternal brahmachari, and the power of his sacrifice was so great. Bhishma is terrible. It's a terrible vow he took. He swore that just so that his father could marry Matsyagandha, he said that for that I will not claim the throne. Whereupon, the fisherwoman's father said, well, but what if you have a son and he claims the throne? So he said, okay, then in that case, I will not have any offspring at all. I'll have no progeny, right? This is a very remarkable vow. It's not an easy vow to take. That too on behalf of somebody else. And that too on behalf of somebody else who's not exactly being very self-restrained himself. All right. So the mental strength of a Bhishma is very difficult to imagine. So in the Manomaya Kosha, he has performed tremendous tapas. Right. He has mastered the Manomaya Kosha to a point where he can then decide when the pranas leave. Right. It is that level of mastery of one's own sharira at that inner frame, right? And so, yes, then this can be taken literally, marked by those. So the sort of, and very simply, essentially what happens is at the time of departure, the pranas, they say, well, again, there are those who depart and there are those who are free without departure at all. So the Jivan Muktas, their mind has already dissolved into this Mahat. So Mahesh asked this question about Hiranyagarbha, Avyakta. So when we think of conceptually the one unified Brahman, it says, and that also came in it came in the Upanishad, so it's very timely we read that. What did he say? He said, Eko ham, I am one. Bahusyama prajayeti. Each of you said this at some point. That's why we are so many. Right? The same Brahman is within all of us, right? At some point we said, I am one, let me be many. Right? Okay. So now, at that instant where we went from 1 to 2 is called Mahat. This is the mind of the Lord. Okay. And the moment it divides into Mahat, it also generates Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is the prana. So I told you that mind and prana meet at the same point. Right? So the moment Bhagavan says, let me be 2, there is a formation of the thought and there is the flow of prana. Both start at the same instant. So then, like a ripple, think of a still lake. Nothing is happening. The first pebble drops and the ripple spread out, right? So this wave in consciousness is the prana. It's a spanda. And with it goes the thought. Both are fluctuations. The first fluctuation is in consciousness. And then the whole creation starts. Right? Now, when one knows this, so the Jivan Muktas, by erasing all traces of mental thought completely, they've already dissolved. Like if you take Bhagavan Sri Ramana, those who are in Sahaja Samadhi, for them the pranas don't even leave the body. It is already dissolved. The mind has dissolved, right? But there is a second category called Krama Mukti, Mukti in sequence, which happens at the time of departure. So in that situation, it is said the prana utkramanti, they move up, right? So at the time of departure, what happens is the mind and the pranas move up and the mind gets prepared to take on a new body. Or at least it is done with this body. It has fulfilled what it can with this body. It has nothing more to do. So at that time, the yogi who remembers that I have entered from here, right? I did not enter from these other 9 gates. I entered as the Lord, and I said, Eko Ham Bahusyama, I entered from here. That the Aitari Upanishad also tells you. Okay. So at that point, the yogi remembers that I must exit through the Sushumna, through the Brahmarandha. And so the pranas move upward and they don't get distracted. At that time, even if the Yamadutas come, what are the Yamadutas after all? They are our last trace. They are testing how much attraction do you still have to the world? They are asking you this question. How much ignorance do you still have? How much do you still think you can enjoy this cycle of pleasure and pain, happiness and sadness? How much more do you have left? That's all they ask. And if you say, I have, well, then they whack you pretty nicely. But if you say, no, I will only remember the pranava, they just run away. They're terrified. They don't have anything to do with people like that, right? And this is there again and again in the Puranas, whether you take Shiva Puranam or you take Vishnu Puranam, it's the same thing. Take the story of Ajamila, you take other stories, it's the same thing. So it is just saying that at that time, you've had a nice play, you've enjoyed the Manushananda only, right? Now then you remember, well, come on, I've got to still experience that peta bliss. 10 to power 16, right? Why not? Anything, but at least home. that will bring back all the memories. Oh, yes, we talked about this peta bliss. So that's it. So at that point, for the yogi who knows this, the exit is not through the senses. And so there is no return. The mind knows, okay, much has been enjoyed, but this was 1 by 10 to the power 16. Why would I want to come back for 1 by 10 power 16? That's all. It's a choice. It's a very simple choice. And once one becomes aware of it, then Yama and all, they say, okay, this guy, forget it. There's no point. Yeah, he knows which way he's going. We're not going to mess with this. Right? Our job is not here. But that Yama is regulation. It is by regulating the senses, the Yama, right, that we do in yoga. When we master that smaller Yama, when we regulate our self, then the bigger Yama cannot do anything to you, the great regulator, because you are in line with him. He's also helping. He says, yeah, good. I told you, I'm the first one. Who is Yama? He's the first man who regulated himself. And so he knew where he went. Right? So anyway, long digression. But I thought it was interesting. It kind of brought together. I don't know if it had anything to do with what you asked, Pawan, but.
No, thank you. I think it helped. Now I understand it better. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, we should probably read. Should we 9? Is that right? So very nice new adhyay, Navamo adhyay. Ashtame Nadi Dvarena Dharana Yoga Sagunaha Uktaha. In the 8th chapter has been set forth the yoga of retention with its characteristics effected by the means of he says arteries, but we know nadis. Right? We don't have to confuse it with tubes that send blood up and down. Tasya cha phalam Agnirchiradi Kramena Kalantare Brahma Prapti Lakshanam Eva Anavritti Rupam Nirdishtam. That its fruit, Tasya Phalam, and its fruit, the eventual attainment by stages. So again, we talked about that. Agni Archiradi, by the path of fire and light. Kalantari, at the end of the time. Brahma Prapti Lakshanam, attainment of Brahma, eventual attainment. Eva, Anavritti Rupam, the non-returning path. The path with the characteristic of no return. Nirdishtam has been indicated. Tatra Anenaiva prakarena moksha praptihi phalam adhigamyate na anyatha. In order to obviate the apprehension that the achievement of liberation is possible only in this manner and no other, the Blessed Lord said as follows: Iti tad ashanka ashanka vya vivarta yishaya. Tad ashanka vya vivarta yishaya. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Lord, in order to obviate the apprehension that achievement of liberation is possible only in this manner and no other, the Blessed Lord said. So this is called Yoga of Royal Science of the Royal Mystery. And let us see at the end, there will be the Sanskrit version of it. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya. Fair enough. Raja Vidya and Raja Guhya. Royal knowledge, royal science, and royal mystery. Nama Namamadhya. So please, who is going to read?
I can go first.
Okay.
Idam tute guhyatamam pravakshamyan suyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yat gyatva mokshase ashubhat.
Beautiful, beautiful. See what I mean, these verses are just, I was telling my mother, they are sometimes translated in English as nectarine, which of course is not the name of the fruit, but meaning nectar-like, right? So what a fantastic opening statement. Idam tu te, and now I shall reveal. Guhya tamam. So again, in the superlative, Guhya, secret. Guhyatara, comparatively secreter. Guhyatama, secretest. Right? This is the ultimate mystery. Pravakshyami. I will tell you. Anasuyave. Because why? You do not disagree foolishly with me. Because you do not denigrate. You do not carp. You do not cavil with me. Jnanam. This most recondite knowledge. Vijnanam. And the realization. What is the fruit of this knowledge? Sahitam. Together with that realization. Yan jnatva. Knowing which, mokshase, you will be liberated. From where? Ashubhat. Anything that's inauspicious. I mean, if you have such a fantastic declaration, it's both interesting the reader immediately, right? And said in verse so beautifully. What more can one say? Let us quickly review the commentary. Idam Brahma Jnanam. So Bhagavan says, Shankaracharya says, this is the Brahma Jnana. Vakshamanam, worth saying. Uktam cha purveshu adhyayeshu. And having also been mentioned to be set forth, presently to be set forth, and already expounded in previous chapters. Tat buddhau sannidhi kritya idam ityaha. The term this is used to refer to this idea present in his mind. Tu shabdaha vishesha nirdharanarthaha now serves to stress a certain distinctiveness. Only this right knowledge directly leads to liberation. Idam evatu samyak jnanam sakshat moksha prapti sadhanam Vasudeva sarvamiti. Vasudeva is everything. He's all this. Narayana. Right. In the smriti. Chandogya Upanishad says, Atmaiva idam sarvam. Atma eva idam sarvam. Ekam eva advitiyam. Chandogya Upanishad, establishing the Advaita concept. Ekam eva advitiyam. How much more direct can it get? One only without a second. Right? Okay. Then he says, Ityadi shruti smritibhyaha na anyat अथ ते य अन्यथा अतो विदुः अन्यराजानः ते क्षय्यलोका भवन्ति. Now those who cognize otherwise are subject to other rulers. Their worlds perish. No other knowledge other than this will liberate. In fact, even in Purusha Suttam it comes, na anyah pantha ayanaya vidyate. There is no other way to know the support of all this. Right? Te tubhyam guhyatamam gopyatamam also. Pravakshyami kathayishyami anasuyave asuya rahitaya. I shall reveal to you this most recondite and hidden. Guhya and Gopya synonymous. Gopyatamam. For you don't carp. You are not a fault finder. Right? What is indicated by this? Kim tat jnanam. Kim vishishtam vijnana sahitam anubhava yuktam. Yat jnanam gyatva prapya mokshase ashubhat samsara bandhanat. Right? So, Bhagavan is saying, the realization or experience. Remember, I mentioned Anubhava so many times. Right from the introduction to our Hinduism thing, Anubhava is the goal. All the paths strive for this Anubhava. And therefore, knowledge and its realization or experience, same. So, Anubhava Yuktam, Yat Jnanam. So again, you see, learned parroting, there are many things that experience. So, how shall we put it? The world of words and the world of texts is very vast. Not everybody can be a Adi Shankaracharya. Not everyone can recount every Shruti and every Smriti and every Puranam with that kind of lightning accuracy, recollection, precise precision. Is not possible. Right? But there are many people who may be very learned in these things, but don't have experience either. Right? In our great commentator, we have the unique and sort of almost incomprehensible collocation of experience and learning. Right? There are some who have experience but cannot explain very well. Right? Or their experience has not been fully informed by knowledge. Right? But nevertheless, experience is what is the goal. And discrimination from just learned parroting is what is emphasized here. One may read many books. One can definitely memorize many things. But that alone is not the distinctive feature. Right? What attracts the sincere aspirant, like the bees go to the flower, is the taste or the recognition of their experience. Right? That is the only thing that draws the true aspirant. Acha, next one. Mastering it, you will be liberated from evil. Ashubha is the samsara bandhanam. Please, next.
I can go.
Yes.
Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitra Midamuttamam Pratyacha Bhagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartumabhyayam.
Yes, this is the sovereign science, Raja Vidya. It's the king of all the sciences. Vidyanam Raja, Bhagavan already said in the translation. Among the sciences, Brahma Vidya is the exceedingly resplendent. Raja Guhyam, it's also the supreme mystery. Of all mysteries in the world, it's the supreme mystery. Right? Undoubtedly, science uncovers many beautiful mysteries in the physical world. Right? When you think of, Einstein's Michelson-Morley experiment, it's a fantastic explanation of a mystery, right? Or, we take, what was that guy, Rutherford, hitting those alpha particles into a gold foil, right? He discovered a mystery, and then Somebody had to explain it, right? What is in this atom? How spacious is it, etc. Beautiful mysteries. Science is full of delightful mysteries, right? And science is also capable of explaining them through a particular system, right? But what is a supreme mystery? What is more mysterious than all the mysteries? Right? This is that one, right? If all the questions of dark matter and all those were answered, even, this would still remain, right? It would still remain a mystery, because even the greatest scientists at the time of death, they don't know where they're going. They may explain the physical world, but they don't know what happens after that, right? So it is a supreme mystery. Rajaguhyam, Pavitram, and it is very purifying. Idam, this one. Uttamam, it's the best of purifiers. Water, definitely bathing in water is purifying to some extent. Eating a tulsi leaf is purifying. Sitting in front of a homa fire is purifying. Drinking panchagavyam is purifying. But this is the supreme purifier. Knowledge is the supreme purifier. Pratyaksha avagamam. Pratyaksha, in front of the eyes, right? Its perception, apprehension is immediate. Dharmyam, it is righteous. It is in accord with the natural law. That natural law which we call Rita, this is entirely in line with it. Susukham, it's Karthum Susukham. It is very easy to do. And it's Avyayam, it's imperishable. Right? So again, Bhagavan is enticing the aspirant to, he's building up the excitement for the mystery, like a thriller, right? So your nail-biting thing is, what is going to happen next? So please, we can read maybe one more, and then we can continue next time. Huh? Let's read the next one.
I can go, Professor.
Please.
Ashraddhadhana purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani.
Very good. Yes, correct. Vartmani. Ashraddhadhanaha. Ones of little faith, no faith. Shraddha, Guru Vedanta, Vakyadi, Vishwasa. Ashraddha, one with no faith in this spiritual law. Purushaha, men. Asya dharmasya, in this particular spiritual law. O Parantapa, scorcher of foes. Aprapya mam, not gaining me, failing to reach me. Nivartante, return. Mrityu, samsara vartmani, to the way of repeated deaths. Already we explained that, right? Summary of last chapter already explained that. Ashraddhadhana iti, who have little faith. Ashraddhadhanaha, shraddha virahitaha, without, devoid of faith. Atma jnanasya dharmasya asya swarupe tatfale cha nastikaha papakarinaha. They are deniers of the nature and fruit of the spiritual law of self-knowledge. They are negationists and sinners who resort to the esoteric doctrine of asuras. Asutrupaha papaha purushaha ashraddhadhanaha parantapa. What is their thing? Asuranam upanishadam deha matratma darshanam eva pratipannaha. Those who are devoted to the doctrine, the esoteric doctrine, the Upanishad of the Asuras, that is, the body is the self. They are the vitalists. I think with this, Bhagavan is also to some extent condemning the Charvakas, etc. Right? What is their nature? Aprapya mam parameswaram, not reaching me, the ultimate Lord, the great Lord, the Lord of all. Mat praptau na eva ashanka iti. Mat prapti marga sadhana Veda bhakti matramapi aprapya ityarthaha. They return, or they stick to the path leading to empirical life and death, the path leading to the status of animals or to life in hell. Nivartante nischayena vartante kva mrityu samsara vatvani mrityu yuktaha samsara mrityu samsara tasya vartma naraka tiryagadi prapti margaha tasminneva vartante ityarthaha. So, to the status of animals or the hells. So the notion being, body being subject to birth and death is a repetitious cycle. So having built up the mystery in first three, we will come back and read what Bhagavan has to say as the royal way, royal science, royal mystery, and how it is very easy to follow. Any questions?
Yes, Lord Shankar.
Pardon me?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I was thinking about the type of person this verse is concerned about. For
Mhm.
instance, we just talked about this, that most people nowadays, because they are never exposed of this technology or the means to explore this inquiry, most people just don't think about these things enough. I mean, they're not even saying that this life is all it is and it's all the enjoyment and pleasure that matters. It's just that people don't think about this enough at all. So does this verse concern with those people as well, or?
I think I always apply this verse to myself. And when I forget the doctrine, then I realize I am subjecting myself to that danger. Right? Probably what you're saying is also true. But I have not. I found it a little hard to completely unravel the thinking of others, because I cannot know their minds completely. So then I just think it's probably better not to ascribe. We don't know, is where I would say. I don't know that. But this much I know, that when in the depths of despair, that when one denies or is tempted to deny the Lord or the self, that is dangerous. Right. So sometimes we really despair. The circumstances seem overwhelmingly difficult. For instance, if one gets very angry, at that time Bhagavan says, right, buddhi nashat pranashyati. So, krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha. So the smriti is, the memory is lost of both the smriti in the Vedic sense, but even memory in the more empirical sense, right? So at those times there is danger of forgetting the doctrine, right? And that is what I think. Well, that's very dangerous, right? And of course, even after knowing the truth, righteous anger can arise, right? But the ability to control that and to not forget that. Or when I think of people who commit suicide, there is obviously a clear point here, right? So if somebody committed a suicide, we know that nobody killed them. It was not an accident. They leave a note behind. I was sick with life. I committed suicide. This is this example of this, in a way. It's a very sad example of it, because they are the ones who go to the Asurya Namatan, the ones who in the Isha Upanishad say sunless worlds, right? And it's for that reason that for those deaths, we have a special kind of Pitrakarya. We don't do the regular Pitrakarya for them. If you read the Apara Karya Prayoga, those who die of suicide are treated very differently in Hinduism. For them, the Pindadan is not done. They are not joined to the Pitras. This is not their status. Because it was a passage from this life in great ignorance. That's the worst ignorance. But it happens, and that's why we need all the psychiatric help and all the mental health institutions to save people from that, right? The other kind of thing is when you talk about, so there are different levels, right? So you may say that is the deepest one. The second one is living in hell, which is living in an addiction in this life, right? You just take it. We've talked about this. I think I've shared some thoughts with you about people who are addicted to gambling or any kind of the drugs or alcohol or tobacco or devices or pornography, whatever it is. There are so many addictions, right? These are all a kind of hell, actually, right? Even with human birth, they are hellish, right? So then now you come to rising above all that. Okay, you come to the people who are just enjoying life and who may not think. Yeah, there may be some who think, who have forgotten, right? And who may think that, okay, this world is everything. And yes, so Bhagavan is definitely referring to them also, right? But I think we can have more definite conclusions about if somebody self-admits to you and says that, okay, I've had enough of life, I want to terminate this human existence. Or if they say that I am unable to control myself in any way whatsoever, so I am addicted. But see, the truth is that the Lord is in all of them. The Lord is in them also. It's not that they are beyond the Lord. The Lord is in them. Only they are denying it. Right? And that is why at any instant, if they start the path to recovery, their success is guaranteed. Right? If the mind of any of them turns and says, okay, I'm done with this, okay, they're not condemned at all. That is the difference in Hinduism. Nobody is condemned. Nobody is condemned. Even Ravan considered attains mukti at the time of his death because he recognizes the Lord. In fact, the great asuras are very great because they continuously hate the Lord, thus remembering him at all times. And at the time of passing, they remember the Lord, which is actually fantastic, right? Right? So that kind of one-pointed meditation, even in hatred, is to be admired. But Bhagavan says there are easier ways. You don't have to go that far, right? I mean, think of it, this Jaya and Vijaya, right? His two Dwarapalakas, they're the ones who keep getting born again and again as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and people like that, right? They're very close to him. They're constantly thinking about him. But we don't have to resort to such extreme measures. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. I think self-reflection first, and then maybe. Okay, very good. So I'll say our Shanti Mantram and we will meet again. Have a lovely rest of your evening and weekend. Om Tachamyora Vrinimahe Gatum Yajnaya Gatum Yajnapataye Daivihi Swastirastu Naham Swastirmanushabhyam Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. Thank you for another delightful satsang.